Maybe could you briefly tell us how Training Peaks was started and really the beginnings of the business and what challenges you faced in getting it off the ground? I mean, now it's really the
Yeah,
predominant platform, but how did you reach that?
this is one of my favorite topics. I started coaching athletes back in the early 80s, endurance athletes. And the way I first started coaching people, well, they were all neighbors. And so I would meet with them. They'd come over for a cup of coffee and we'd talk. Or I'd be at my store in the 1980s and they'd come into my store and we'd chat over at my counter, and I'd have a pad of paper there and I'd write down the training plan for them. And that's the way it was done, because all my clients were people I knew who lived within a few miles of where I lived and worked. So it was no problem at all to meet with them. It was very effective. I could ask questions. I could tell them things. They could tell me things. It was just very good interaction. Then I started getting people that were no longer living within driving distance to my house or my office, my business. And so I had to figure out a new way to communicate with them. And so it was the obvious thing was I started out using just postal mail. I'd write a letter and I'd include their training planners and a letter which explains why we're doing this and all that kind of stuff. And I'd mail it to them. And I'd talk to them on the telephone and we'd talk about the plan and have them write it down while we're talking. So it was a little bit different. It wasn't face to face anymore. They were no longer close by, but it was still very personal. Then I got to the place where I was coaching people who were way outside of my time zone in other continents. And I recall the first time I got somebody who was not from the US. And I recall thinking, how do I communicate with this person? This person is many time zones away from me. Send a letter could take 2 weeks in those days. Talking on the telephone is very, very expensive. And so we used fax machines. Fax machines were a pain in the butt. I would fax the workout to the athlete, and on Monday morning at the end of their week, they would fax their logs back to me. I'd get up on Monday morning, go to my office, and there would be all these rolls of paper on the floor from 50 athletes who'd spent the night faxing stuff to me, and I had to figure out which pages went together and staple them and all that kind of stuff. And so it was just a huge, gigantic mess to deal with. Then in the early mid 90s, I brought my son on board. He had been a pro road cyclist in Europe and a pretty good athlete, and he wanted to become a coach. So he became one of my assistant coaches mid 1990s. He's much smarter than me, as Jeff knows from having talked with him. And he knew he had to figure out a way to communicate with our athletes better than what I was doing. Fax machines weren't going to hack it. And so he went to a friend of his. This is 1999. Went to a friend of his who designed websites for Fortune 500 companies and big shots and so forth. And he told his friend that we needed to somehow streamline what we were doing. We could no longer use fax machines or shouldn't use them. We need to go online. And so this guy came up with basically what I've been sending by fax, and he put it on the web, on a website. It was basically the same thing I'd been using all along, only now I could go on the website and I could type in the workouts, and the athlete could go on after the workout and type in what they did and how it felt and all the numbers and all that kind of stuff. And so that was 1999. Year 2000, we realized this is becoming a really good tool. The guy who was the friend of my son who designed it took it under his wing as one of his favorite projects and was always working on it. So he kept refining it all the time and started getting more and more streamlined. And we decided in the year 2000 that it was really something we ought to make public. Instead of just using me and my coaches, my son and a few other coaches I had working for me, using this as our tool, we should make it available to anybody who wants to use it. And so we did. We went online with it. We launched it in 2000. We started out just with a handful of people using it, almost nobody. And within 3 years, we probably had something like maybe 400 people using it within 3 years, which is tiny. And then things began to move our direction as people became more aware of things like power meters and such, because we were doing lots of stuff with devices on how to bring the data to the athlete in a more streamlined manner than what anybody had ever done before. And so we began to grow exponentially. Now we've got hundreds of thousands of clients around the world who use it. We've got thousands and thousands of coaches who use it. Pro teams are using it. Tour de France teams use it. We've branched out into strength and conditioning models and data. And we've got another business online called Train Heroic, which is about power training. And so lots of pros use the Denver Broncos, for example, use that. And we've got all this other stuff that's been spun off from TrainingPeaks. So the thing has just kept growing exponentially over the years. It's gotten to the point now we have, within the total company, we have over 300 employees now. And so it went from just that one guy who started the whole thing, working in his bedroom on his computer, designing the site for us. It went from him in 1999 to having over 300 employees now, working on all the stuff that goes into this product we have, which we're all very excited about still, and very pleased with how it's gone for. So it's been a long journey, but it's been a lot of fun also.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching. It was a real privilege to speak to Joe Friel, such a pioneer in the sport. He's seen it since the very beginning. So I've got a whole playlist of videos from Joe right up here. Click on that to watch them. Also, I've got videos from other legends of the sport. People like Dan Emfield, Bob Babbitt, Tim Reed, Craig Alexander, Mark Allen, Dave Scott, Hunter Allen, Laura Siddle, so many. So please keep watching, like, subscribe, train hard, race happy, and see you on the next one.